Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. 8/20/20 edition. We are definitely dog days. Hey, we got John Riosti, American banker, joining us. John, thank you so much. John with Thursdays. John, how are you doing in your undisclosed location on the East Coast?
Doing fine. It's hot, but that's about it. That's the worst.
Yeah, well, actually, I've been hot in Washington, D.C., and it's more than hot. It's
hot and humid.
Yeah, hot and humid and miserable. Hey, John, we were talking. When do you think? Now I know that you're at your not at your office. When do you think you're going to be able to go back?
Our company's talking about next year, so they've sort of given up on trying to do anything this year.
Yeah, I know. I love it. Hey, we got a bunch of information. John, thank you so much for joining us. We want you to bring us up to date on what's going on with Congress. First of all, Lance, there's our certificates. You should know about those by now. Lance, this is what you're going to be talking about next week, and there's a ton of information. Give us a 15-second elevator pitch.
Well, we're just going to talk about the utilization of agents in the SBA loan process, what can be charged, when you have to complete a SBA Form 159, how to do it, what you're certifying as a participant lender, what the borrower's certifying, what the agent's certifying, but just trying to clarify when there's a third party involved and they charge the borrower a fee and what you have to do as an SBA participant lender.
And the reason why we're focusing on this so much is this is at the height of SBA's review of a lender's portfolio. They want to make sure that we're disclosing everything correctly, and they're very, very highly sensitive to fees that are paid by the borrower to packagers, to lenders, to whoever. And we have our franchise reports. Please take advantage of that. And that's always a popular product of ours. Hey, let's go into it. Let's talk about, let's go to the poll questions, and then we'll go to John. Do you believe PPP Round 3 regulations should be disclosed up front? What we're asking on this, John, is, and I think we stole this from your reporting, that lenders are complaining about, hey, we didn't know what they were, we want them up front. John, go ahead. Tell us what your reporting is.
Well, it hasn't made it into print yet, but the trade groups, most prominently CBA and some others, are pushing Congress to have the SBA, have Treasury, lay out all the rules and regulations that will apply to PPP Round 3 up front before the first new dollar is spent in PPP Round 3, so that you don't have...
Go back to the results, Joseph. John, I don't know how much of a statistician you are, but if 90% of our people say yes, that's probably overwhelmingly in favor of the proposal.
Yes. Well, you see how many people said no. So
0% say no and 3% say I don't know, and that's fair. I mean, I don't have a problem when people answer I don't know because they haven't thought about it. But 97%, that's pretty powerful. Question number 2, can a bank charge a packaging fee if a third party has already collected one?
Oh, Bob. Good question.
I know, and you get to answer it.
I want to see the results. And the answer, well, majority of you got it correct. This is what's known as the two-master rule. Two separate parties cannot charge the borrower for the same service. So if there's packaging fee charged to the borrower by an outside party, the bank cannot turn around and charge a packaging fee as well.
And our third question is, can you being the lender, pay a referral fee over 2% of the loan amount by the lender to the agent? And I'll clarify this, passing this fee through to the borrower.
So, Bob, we've got a smart group, and I know they're going to get this right.
That is incorrect. The answer is yes, you can do it. The SBA does not care. I shouldn't say not care, but whatever agreement you have between the agent and the lender is fine. Correct, Lance?
What the bank pays an agent is up to the bank. SBA is more concerned about fees that the borrower pays. And, you know, the SBA Form 159 has not been around forever. This discussion about, you know, fees charged to the borrower it's not a brand new discussion, but, you know, over the last several years. But, Bob, I've had a chance to do some loan review on loans that were done many years ago, and I've seen borrowers pay astronomical packaging fees on SBA loans, and of course the Inspector General will look at those, and you know, that's where we ended up with the SBA Form 159 and more regulation on the fees that a borrower pays. But SBA, you know, if you as a bank now, I don't know why you would pay a referral fee over 2%.
Well, I was going to say we are not in favor of doing that, but we are saying you have the ability to do that if you wish.
Absolutely, as long as it's not being passed through to the borrower and any
disclosed.
Well, and something you have to be really careful with on fees, Bob, is let's say you have a third party that charges the borrower a fee for X, say $5,000, and when you get to the closing table, you charge a somewhat similar fee that's in the same amount. Be real careful, because the two-master rule, again, the borrower cannot be charged twice for the same service.
Hey, we don't have this on a slide, but I want to talk about this since we have John. John, I think you're following this story on Stein Mart. What's interesting about Stein Mart, it's a retail operation, Katie, you may know, 243, 250 locations throughout the United States. And the issue, John, is there was a $10 million PPP loan that was advanced a while back. I should have better facts, but I don't. I'm going to say April. And they just filed bankruptcy. John, two questions. Does the lender have an exposure, and does Stein Mart have an exposure?
Well, the lender exposure, my understanding is since the bankruptcy was filed after the loan was issued, the lender wouldn't, because the SBA loan is guaranteed. So it would be the same as you know, in a normal SBA loan situation, although most SBA loans are not 100% guaranteed. But no, the lender, in my understanding, wouldn't have exposure. So because there's no provision for bankruptcy subsequent to getting the PPP loan.
Lance, what's your opinion about that?
Well, when you look at the application form, and we all talked about this earlier, there is a discussion of bankruptcy on the borrower's application form, but it only asks the question, are you currently involved in a bankruptcy? So a borrower who is not filing, not involved in a bankruptcy, who gets a PPP loan, and then 3 or 4 months down the road decides to file bankruptcy, I don't think the borrower's at risk, and I don't think the lender's at risk as well. And quite frankly, Bob, I think we're going to have a lot more cases of PPP borrowers who do end up filing bankruptcy after receiving a PPP loan. I think it's inevitable.
Katie, what do you see from your perch?
I think you're probably all on the right point. I think we're probably going to hear some more guidance on what this exactly is going to be, probably coming up pretty soon, maybe in an FAQ or something. But I think you're all right. I think they're probably pretty safe from where they're at.
I go back to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I go back to the original legislation, which says as long as the lender is acting in good faith, we're not going to go back and ding them for that. They want to make sure there's no fraud on the borrower standpoint. Now, if they get the loan on a Monday, they file on a Tuesday, I think that could be issues. But I have no idea what the time frame is, 3-4 months, but I tend to vote with Lance and John as saying that there's it's happening in the marketplace. COVID 2.0 is affecting small business again, and there's going to be, unfortunately, a lot more retailers that are going to be filing bankruptcy.
Well, and the thing on PPP, Bob, is the lenders have a safe harbor on reliance of borrower certification. So the borrower has to check that box on whether or not they're filing or involved in a bankruptcy, and the lender is relying on that certification. So again, in this particular case, I don't think either party's at great risk for that, because it happened after the fact, and the application doesn't ask, are you going to, do you project to file bankruptcy 6 months from now?
Yeah, well, Russell and Vicky point out something very important, and we don't, and that is they both believe that there were more than 500 employees. And if there's more than 500 employees, then that's a whole different story. Absolutely. Then they're ineligible. Yeah. And then there's, what would happen in that case, John? What do you think?
Well, it'd be ineligible for the loan. It goes, but still, Lance makes a good point that the lender is relying on the borrower certification, although the lender, depending on who held the loan, the original loan, the underlying loans for Stein Mart, should know, should have a good idea of the company. But that they would be ineligible for the loans if they're deemed. And in a way, this is a case that's going to be hashed out, because the other thing that's interesting about this is they got a large loan, one that was bound to be sort of picked over anyway.
Yeah. And Vicky does the math, and Vicky says, I don't understand. If we have 240 stores, how can you have less than 500 employees? It's 2 employees per store. So we will follow this more closely, but I think we're all in agreement. Go ahead.
Bob, when you first brought this up, Vicky, I'm in the same school that you are. There was some flexibility for the hospitality industry, because they could look at less than 500 employees per location. So you could have a hotel chain that had 700 or 800 employees, split up 35 employees at each hotel, and they'd be okay. But I didn't think that retail, a store like Stein Mart, fell under that same situation. And so when I initially heard of it, I'm sitting there thinking, how, do they have only 3 employees per store? I mean, that was my big question.
Yeah, very good. Hey, we appreciate the feedback. John, what's going on the Hill?
Well, quite a bit, a lot that you already covered yesterday, Bob, with the legislative negotiations about the stimulus package, and they're just taking new shapes and forms every day, and there are new complications injected into this, things that even a few weeks ago we weren't talking about, that being the postal service, and now how this is sort of playing into the negotiations. But one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is definitely should definitely part of, and I believe will be part of at least the PPP component of whatever stimulus package is ultimately agreed to, is the question of deductions. And I would be interested to know how many of your listeners are following this issue. It's actually been percolating since May, but it got renewed urgency a little bit earlier this month when AICPA and a whole slew, dozens of other trade groups wrote Congress about this. And just sort of the gist of the issue is the CARES legislation has a provision that allows businesses any income that would derive, that would normally be counted as income, and a forgiven loan would normally be counted as income, is exempt. So they don't have to increase their gross income by the amount of the loan that's forgiven. But the deductions that sort of are the backbone for that for the forgiveness, all the business deductions, the Treasury is saying they have to be counted. They are not exempt.
Yeah, Joseph, go to the next
obviously that's
slide.
a lot of money.
Yeah, New Hampshire's announced that that it will be taxable on the state level. Now, this isn't going to be taxed
Right.
on the federal level, or am I confused about that, John?
It is going to be taxed, at least as we stand now, because the IRS has issued a circular saying the deductions are not exempt. So you have the mortgage deductions, you have or the rent deductions, you have all your payroll and benefits deductions, you have utilities, all those things that are normal business deductions cannot be used. They are not deductible if they contributed to forgiveness on a PPP loan. That's the Treasury's position right now.
Yeah, we had a CPA on Monday who said the accounting entry is additional income, but in his opinion, that would not be taxable income on the federal level. So obviously there's a lot of confusion out there. Hopefully this will be resolved in future legislation. I know the intent is not to tax these small businesses, right, John?
Well, that's Congress's intent, and they have, since the legislation, since this whole issue arose in May, when it started percolating, a number of lawmakers on both sides, Republican and Democrat, have come out and said our intent was that this was across the board 100% tax exempt. But it's not so much the income issue. That is clearly, the CARES Act clearly exempts any income that you would normally have reported on a 1099-C form. Any income stemming from, flowing from a forgiven loan, that's absolutely absolutely exempt. It's the deductions you use that right now the Treasury is saying it will not be allowed on your income tax. You will not be allowed to use those deductions, number one, to get forgiveness, and then number two, on your income tax. They call it a double benefit.
Yeah, obviously this is a hot topic. We will be following that. I hope it'll be resolved in the legislation. And we'll see what happens. But I agree, the intent of Congress is not to tax Main Street on that.
Bob,
Go ahead, Lance.
I hope they get this fixed because, again, it could be a double whammy. You give somebody a PPP loan, it helps them get propped up and back into business, and then they file their 2020 taxes early next year and find out they owe an extra $40,000 or $50,000 or however much the number is. You don't want to get a small business back on its feet and then pop it with a huge federal tax bill or state tax bill.
Well, we're going to put Katie on this. Katie, little did you know that you would become an expert in accounting 101 when you took this job. So we'll follow up on this very much. Erica asked a question, which is your opinion on collecting documents, or does a borrower resolution replace the need for documents? A lot of these clients are new to the bank.
I assume she's talking about PPP loans, and you would typically. That's why a lot of institutions, a lot of people ask, why did a lot of institutions only do PPP loans for their current customers? Well, part of the reason they did that is because they already had the entity documentation. They all already had the identification information that's necessary to do the loan. If you don't have the appropriate entity documents, I think that you should have collected them.
Yeah, very good. Hey, John, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us. We appreciate your insights. I know that's a major time commitment for you, so thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us today for Call Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Have a great day.